Hello everybody, this is Burak Güzel and welcome to another episode of CodeIgniter from scratch. I believe this is episode 16 and we're going to be working with data, and this is going to be a mixed subject, so we're going to utilize a few different things we already learned about and put it into a more practical use. We're also going to use a database, a sample database I'm going to show you that contains information about movies and actors, etc. Um, so we're going to build a page that will display movies. We'll have pagination, and it will also have sortable columns. So let's get started. And before we do any coding, we're going to import this database. This database I got from the MySQL documentation actually. So if you go to the MySQL documentation at this URL on this page that says MySQL documentation other MySQL documentation, there is a sample database called the Sakila database. So if you Google for Sakila, you should be able to find this page. And they provide a zip file to download this. So that way you can import it to your database. So download the zip file and the contents will look something like this. You'll have a few files, and these three are for the workbench, MySQL workbench, for looking at the visual design of the database. And these two files, the SQL files, are the important ones that you need for importing the database. First, we're going to import the schema file, which will create the tables, and then we will import the data file that will insert the data rows into the tables. So just go to your phpMyAdmin and create a database called Sakila. And I just deleted everything, so starting from scratch again. I have 0 tables, and to import the database, just hit the import link here up top. And some people will have a 2 megabyte upload limit, and I increased it in my PHP settings to 128. You might have to do that too, because one of these files will be actually 3 megabytes, so it might block you from uploading. But also what you can do is zip this file and upload the zip file instead, because this upload actually accepts zip files also. So anyway, import the schema file first, hit go, and it just created 23 tables pretty quickly, and import the data file. Now this might take a few seconds. Um, so you'll see that there are these 23 tables. Actually, some of these are views, not actual data tables. And for example, the film list table is a view, and the film table is the actual table that has data. Film list like combines film category and maybe other tables. You'll see now the import is done. Uh, you can just look at how much data there is, like 47,000 rows of total data. So this is a nice database to do some practice with. And for example, if you look at the film list view, which actually works just like a table, you can't insert to it, I don't think, but or you shouldn't insert to it. It just pulls from multiple tables, like the film table. Um, So yeah, we're going to pull this data and display it and make it sortable in a nice table. So let's get back to coding. So install CodeIgniter. I have a fresh install. My config is simple. I have my base URL, and I'm auto-loading database. Here, URL form, stuff we usually use. And your database.php. Don't forget to set your database name to Sakila, and of course your username password also. And I have an htaccess file for getting rid of index.php. So the usual stuff. Now we can get started by creating a controller first. So I'm going to create a new PHP file under the controllers folder, call it films. So it's going to be obviously class films extending the controller class. And let's have a function named display. That will be the method that displays this table. So it's going to be like this. I'm going to close this for now, or actually just change the URL. Okay, it's blank. This is my current install that I'm working on. Localhost/CI series films display, and there's nothing here. At the end, it's going to load a view. So once I gather all the data I want to display, I pass it to a view called films and I pass it in an array called data. We usually use the same names. So that means we're going to have a view called films. So create a PHP file. Now let's create a blank document. Don't need JavaScript. Give it a title. Let's just say films. It's pretty easy. So this is going to have a table, and it's going to have headers. It's going to have like an ID and the film's title, etc. I'll put more in a bit. And then there will be a body part. And in the body, we're going to have a for each loop for going through a bunch of films as film and for each. So this will generate multiple rows so it will be tr tags and a bunch of td tags. So ideally I want this film variable, PHP echo film, to have these fields. I believe in the database it's called FID so instead of ID. And title also goes here. Again, I'm going to add a few more rows, columns. So this is going to be the structure of the table basically. And I want to have pagination. So here, if pagination, actually I'm going to do that later. Let's do the table first. Alright, so if I refresh, I'm going to get errors. That's fine. So go back to the controller. Now we're going to fetch the film data from the database. And I know that this is going to get complicated later on. So ideally, I want a model to handle my database operations. So I'm going to assume I'm going to have a model named film model. So I gotta load that. So the function to get all the films I need should be part of this model, and we can call it search. I'm going to call it search instead of just fetch or something, because eventually I want this to be searchable, and we'll get there eventually. So it will return some results. And I want to return the results into the data array. But this is going to be an array. I'm going to return both the results and the number of results. So like all the rows from the database that will be returned will be going to films variable. So results rows. So none of this exists yet. I'm just coming up with names to use. Num results, num rows. So I want to have this function in the film model, and I want it to return an array. And it gets stored here first. And inside this array, I want to have two members. Like one will be the actual rows, so that will become films in the view that we can loop through. And also the number of results. I'm just going to have a spot here that shows you how many results were found. So like here, it will just say found results films. So it could be 1,000 movies, but only display 20 because of pagination. So this will be that 1,000, and this films will have 20 rows. So that those 20 rows are here, and the number 1,000 comes from here, and those were obtained by calling this search function. So let's implement that search function. Go to models folder and create now this film model. So it's going to be called film model.php. It's going to extend the model class, and I'm going to have that search function or method. So obviously we need a query, a database query here. But as I mentioned before, I want two different things. One is the results, like the limited number of results that will be displayed, and the total number of results from the database. So that will make two queries. So we're going to have an actual results query and a count query, let's say, for counting the results. So the results query should be simple. A select and from, I'm going to use a film list table. So if you look at the database, the film list table is the one I want to use. It has an ID, title, a category, price, length, rating. I'm going to grab those fields. I'm not going to grab description or actors. Those are kind of big to be put in a table. So from film list, grab these fields: FID, title, category, length, rating, and price. So we want to have a pagination and let's say 20 per page. To get 20, we will have a limit call here, but it's also going to have an offset. So if it's paginated, every page has a different offset, starting with 0. So you have a limit and offset. That means we should pass them to this search function. So it's a flexible function instead of hard coding the numbers here. So that's the query. And let's put the results in a separate variable. So I'll call it ret. This array is what's going to be returned. An array index of rows will be just get results. Now when you have your query and you call get on it, and then that will execute the query and the result will give you the rows of the results. Now let's have another query for getting the count. This time we're going to select a count star, and I'll have an alias called count. And now you gotta pass this second parameter false, because what the database class does is it takes each of these fields and puts these backticks around them, like escaping them or enclosing them. That makes it a name rather than a special word like the count function here. So if the library were to put these backticks around this, it wouldn't work. It has to stay as it is, and that's why you disable that quotation by putting false as the second parameter here. So whenever you use a function as a field, then you should put false here. And from the same table. And I'm not going to do the same as this. I want to get the first row and get the count field. That's all I'm interested in. So I'm going to get the data in a temporary variable for now. QGet result. So I want the first row, which will be 0, and the count. And I'm going to assign this to, instead of red rows, it's going to be red num rows. And return that array called reds. So that looks okay. So we have num rows and rows in this array returning to here. So I got rows, num rows, putting into the data, passing data into the view, and view having the film. So I have all these fields. Let's go back to them all. I have all these fields. I want to display them all. Let me copy that here. So title, I'll have category, length, rating, price, and same deal here. Title, category, length, rating. Doing some copy paste work. Okay. Let's see. There's an error. Oh, in the model I put limit and offset as these parameters, so we expect to send that from the controller. So there will be limit and offset. For now, they will be offset will be part of pagination, so it will be in the URL. It will be the only parameter here, and limit will be a value we decide, like 20. I'll put it here. So the first page should have 20 results. On top, the total number of rows from this table, apparently it has 997 rows in the film list table. So that's that number. And our nice structured table here. Let's add a little bit of CSS to this. A little bit of styling. Nothing fancy. Just changing the font, for example. And the table to have a little border. TD, TH. Um, 6, good. Gray. And put some padding on the cells, which is always nice. And there we go. Maybe a little bit of spacing for the divs also. Okay. So let's see what else we can improve here. Obviously, we're going to need some pagination because we're displaying only 20 and we want to have links here for the pages. I think pagination was covered, but it was one of the earlier episodes. I'm going to go over it real quick, not too detailed. Let's put a comment here that says pagination, and let's load the library. And at the end, we pass it in a variable called pagination. And it's created by going create links. Now we're going to pass some configuration to this. I'll put it in a config array. Config, say array. First, the base URL. It will be this page, which is film/display. And the rows, number of rows, we already have that right here. And then it needs to know the per page limit, config per page. We also have that as limit. And where the segment is in the URI for the offset variable. So segment. So this will be this variable. So it will be film/display/the offset. So it's going to be the third segment for now. This is going to change in a little bit. So normally it's 3 by default. Normally you wouldn't have to do this, but I'm going to change this number later on. Pagination initialize with this config variable, creating the pagination, passing it to the view, and in the view we should display that. And sometimes if you're returning less than 20, there will be no pagination. So let's put a conditional here. So pagination could be an empty string. If it's not an empty string, display it. And say, put a div here, say pages. Let me scroll down. Pages, echo pagination. So offset here. Now this should work. This should make the offset work. It will create links with the different offset numbers for each page, and that will get passed to the search function, and the model will use that in the limit function. So let's refresh. The pagination is being created. And if you go to second page, you see the number 20 shows up. That's the offset. The page 4 will have 60 offset, and that gets passed through all the way to the search function, and it will start with the offset of 60 to pull 20 results from there. All right. Next step, we want to make this sortable. So we'll have clickable links on these titles, and when you click, it's going to sort by that column. How we're going to do that? It's not going to be like Ajax JavaScript trick. It's going to be actually reloading the page because there's hidden data that's not inside this page. So sorting with Ajax may not be very good here. So we're going to sort the old-fashioned way. So go back to the controller. Now, when you're sorting, there are two things to consider: the sorting field and the sorting order. So those should be part of the URL probably. So it will be in here next to offset. And I want to leave offset as the last variable because of the way the pagination usually works. It appends it to end of this base URL. So I'm going to put it in front of the offset, those two variables like sort by and sort order. And just as we have a default value for offset, let's put defaults on these two. So by default, it should sort by the title, and the sort order should be ascending. And these will get passed to the search function. So limit offset sort by and sort order. Now we gotta modify this. Sort by sort order. Okay. So we gotta make it use those, and that is done by calling calling the order by function in the query. So order by your sort by field and the sort order. We don't have to do that for the count query because that doesn't care about sorting or the order. If you want to be safe, make sure a correct field name is passed. Make sure you don't get, like, since this is going to be coming from the URL, somebody can type in anything. So you want to filter out things that don't fit. So for example, sort order has to be either ascending or descending, right? If it is descending, that's fine. Otherwise, it should be ascending. So it will only be either one of these values, descending or ascending. So this will make it default ascending too. And the sortable columns. So let's say sort columns. You have an array, and the array contains these fields. We're going to allow them to sort by all of these fields. So we can make an array of them and make sure that the sort by variable that is being passed here is one of these values. So it has to be in that array. In array sort by if it is an array, then it's fine. Just pass the same value. If it's not, we'll just default to title. Oh, by the way, if you don't know this syntax, it's the ternary operator. It's like a conditional. It's like an if-else statement shortcut. So this is the condition of the like, if statement. So if this is true, it will return that. Else, it will return that. So if the sort by is inside sort columns in this array we just created, it will just return back itself. So it will assign sort by to sort by. Otherwise, it will assign title to sort by. So that's how the ternary operator will work here. So instead of typing multiple lines of if-else statements, I wrote just a single line to take care of that. So now this should take care of the sorting. Let's refresh. All right, now 60 is not going to be here. I'm going to type the URL because I haven't made these links on these headers yet. So display, the next variable is sort by. Let's sort by length, for example, and sort order, descending, the longest movie first, and then the offset. So let's again do 60. Here we have, okay, something is not right. Oh, since we moved the offset variable, you gotta go to your controller and change this URI segment. So it will be, okay, we have to change the URL too, the base URL. It will be film/display sort by. I should put this in double quotes. Sort by / sort order. Now this is the base URL for our search page, and after this it will put the offset, and that becomes the 5th URI segment. So change that to. Okay, now refresh. All right, now it knows that we're on the 4th page, sorting by length, descending order. As you can see, it's being sorted by this column nicely. And you can go back to another page. Yeah, the last page, etc. So sorting is working. Now let's make it user interactive so that they can click and sort. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to clean up something here. In the view, as you remember, we have the headers and the fields here listed, and we might want to make this nicer. Let's assume that there's going to be an array passed here, and that array will contain every single field, and it will loop through that and output every single header here. And you'll see that it will actually make things a little cleaner. Um, in the controller, let's create that and call it fields. And we're gonna have the two versions of fields. One, the internal name of the field. So, for example, the internal name is FID, title, category. For example, these are lowercase, and FID is different than ID, the one that we're displaying. So we've got to have this version and that version. And all I'm going to do is create the array, and these values will be the index, and these will be the values. So I don't have to send two variables. I just have to create an array that will look like this. FID corresponds to ID. Title is title, and so on and so forth. Rating. Price. And optionally, you could actually, let's put this up higher. All this fixed stuff should be on top, like limits and fields. And optionally, you could just pass this to the search function, and in the query, you could use the same array so you don't repeat them like here and here. So that could also be another step of cleanup, but I'm going to skip that. So I am creating this fields array that will get passed to the view, and in the view I'm going to just loop through that. So here it'll be a for each fields as field, let's say field is the internal name corresponding to the field, or let's say field name and field display. Since this is the header part, it will use the display version. So and for each th echo field display. And something similar for here. I'm gonna just copy this loop and put it within the tr tab, and instead of th, you're gonna have td. So the line is going to be like this, except this will be the field name. Then we can get rid of all of this. So it's less code, and it will be a little more reusable later on, and no repetition. So I save the file, refresh, nothing changes obviously because we just did some code cleanup. And now next thing is to actually adding those links that I was mentioning. So it's going to be done in the view. So here, this is not just going to be a text, but it will be a link. So let's use the anchor function. And what's going to be the target of this link? It's going to be film/display, obviously, and the sort by field. So sort by field here is field name, and the sort order. Okay, that's going to be a little tricky. I'm going to close that for now. Field display will be the text. Okay, let's see the links first. When I refresh, okay, we got these links. So if you mouse over title, you'll see that it will be films display title. It is sorting, and category is also sorting, length is also sorting, rating. So, but it's not reverse sorting. Like if I repeatedly click length, it's not going back. So we need something that kind of flops between ascending and descending. So it's going to be at the end of this URL. And that's going to be, again, a ternary condition like I used before. So let's separate this in a second line. And I'll put dot to append. And this will be the sort order. So it will be either descending or ascending. And I'm going to put the condition here. I got to put parentheses around the whole thing as well. Whoops. Okay, so parentheses around the whole thing, and here will be the condition, and this is the first option, this is the second option. So if there is a sort order already that is ascending, the link will switch to descending, otherwise it will default to ascending. And maybe I should move the comma up here. Okay, so all right, to review, we have our URL, which is films display, the field name, and then we need the sort order. And the existing sort order will determine what the next sort order will be. So if it's ascending, it will switch to descending, otherwise it will just be ascending. And field display is what goes inside the link. So let's refresh. Oh, there's an error, because we actually did not pass sort order into the view. So let's do that. Here, sort, actually sort by and sort order, both of them need to be passed. Sort order. So the view can see those variables. Okay. So click title. Oh, see, it went to descending. If you click again, it's ascending order. Again, descending. Click length, ascending, and click title, it becomes descending. This is not very ideal. Like if I click length, I expect it to be ascending order. Yeah, that's fine. But if I click title, again, I want it to be ascending order. I don't want it to flop to descending order right away. So the behavior should be anytime you click a field for the first time, it should be ascending order. And if you click it again, okay, it switches to descending order. But if you switch and click to another field, it should also be ascending order, but it's not. So I'm going to add just a little bit of code to fix that. So this should also have a condition. The sort by equals the field name. So what this does is, if the current sorting is by this field name, and if it is ascending order, then you switch to descending order. Otherwise, you default to ascending order. So this will only happen if you're already sorting by this field, and then you can switch to descending. So this will just fix that issue. The refresh, I'll just go to default page for now to demonstrate. So hit category, the right order. Hit length, again the right order, and hit title, the correct order. So it's working. So if I click the same field again, now it switches back to descending. Click length, ascending, click length again, descending. So it's working. And one more thing I want to add is a little visual clue to show what field it's being sorted by. So for example, people usually put like a down arrow or up arrow, things like that, next to the field. And we're going to do that with actually a CSS trick. So for example, inside this th field, we can put a class based on the sort. So if, now this is a loop going through every field. So if we are on the field that is being sorted by, we want to display a class, a CSS class. So if it's sort by equals this current field. I'm going to echo a class, and I'm going to call the class sort underscore the sort order. So if it's being ascending order, it will say sort ascending. If it's otherwise sort descending. We can just look at the source code and see that. Title, if you look at the source code, see the title header here got sort ascending CSS class. The other ones don't have that. And if they have that CSS class, just sort ascending, and the other one is descending, and we can actually add content using CSS. Let's put after. This is a little CSS trick. So I'm going to copy paste the character. This character, you can find it in your character map, or I don't know what Mac uses, but it's part of the default characters. Okay, so we're not using any images or anything. This will do. When you refresh, and there it is. So title, this means it's being sorted by title in ascending order. Let's click rating, same thing, length. Click again, now it switches. Category, click again, switches. Also, when you're sorting by column, if you click further down the pages, you'll notice that it preserves that sorting order. So this is it for now, for this episode. And in the next episode, we could possibly add a search form to this and a little more functionality. I hope you learned from this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.